This isn't just a personal issue. It's cultural. It's generational. It's everywhere. Sometimes it feels like we're an entire society of hurt people who just don't know how to identify our emotions. So we all just end up looking angry. And that anger becomes conflict. And that conflict becomes distance. We talk a lot about anger. But what we don't talk about enough is what comes after it. What happens after the apology? After the silence? After the moment passes and you're left wondering, will it be different this time? Because the truth is, saying I'm sorry isn't the same as repair. And real repair takes more than guilt. It takes presence, regulation, self-awareness, and a commitment to doing things differently over and over, even when it's hard. This episode, part 2, is about that. About how we rebuild safety after we've broken it. Whether you're the one who lashed out or the one still carrying the impact. This is about how we come back. Not perfectly, but intentionally. Because healing doesn't stop at the apology. In a lot of ways, that's where it starts. Saying I'm sorry is important, but saying it once isn't enough. If you want real change, real healing, you have to show up for it every single day. That means making a conscious effort, not just to avoid the blow-ups, but to choose different behaviors, different reactions, different responses, especially when it's hard. Not because it's easy, not because it'll happen overnight, but because the longer you wait to work on yourself, the longer you stay stuck in the patterns that keep hurting you and everyone around you. And the truth is, you deserve peace. Not just silence after a fight. Not just distance from people who trigger you. But real peace. The kind that comes from knowing you don't have to keep repeating the same cycles. That kind of peace doesn't show up on its own. You have to choose it over and over again. And every time you do, every time you pause, repair, regulate, and take responsibility, you're not just making things better for that day. You're building a life that feels better to live in. And isn't that the point? You know that saying, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die? That's not just a quote. It's biology. Because when you stay angry, when you stay dysregulated, defensive, reactive, you're not punishing the other person. You're punishing yourself. Anger doesn't just burn bridges. It burns you up from the inside. It hijacks your peace. It wears down your nervous system. It keeps you stuck in patterns that look like power, but are really just pain in disguise. So, if you really want to repair with yourself, with your family, with your partner, you can't just push the anger down. You have to name what's underneath it. Most of the time, it's fear, grief, shame, abandonment, feeling helpless. Repair starts when you stop reacting and start identifying. Ask yourself, what am I actually feeling right now? What do I need in this moment that I don't know how to ask for? Because real repair isn't just saying sorry. It's slowing down enough to understand what was really happening inside you and making a conscious choice not to let that part take the wheel next time. It's actions, not just words. It's showing up differently, consistently, even when no one's watching. Some people say sorry after every outburst, every slammed door, every time they lose their temper over something small. They cry. They promise it won't happen again. And for a while, it's easy to believe them because they do seem sorry. But eventually, the apologies start to ring hollow because nothing actually changes. They still snap under pressure. They still explode when things feel out of control. And the person on the receiving end learns to flinch, not because they're angry, but because they've stopped feeling safe. Because safety doesn't come from remorse. It comes from reliability. You don't need someone perfect. you need someone who can regulate, someone who takes ownership, not just with their words, but with their follow through. Consistency is the only apology that ever really sticks. After the apology comes the real work. And that work is rebuilding trust. Not just trust that you won't explode again, but trust that you're self-aware enough to notice when you're getting close. Trust that you won't shift blame. That you won't pretend it didn't happen. That you won't make it about how bad you feel for hurting someone else. Because here's the truth. Real safety doesn't come from words. It comes from patterns, from consistency, from how you show up and how you stay present. How you take accountability without being asked. Safety gets rebuilt in the small things. In the pause before you raise your voice. The breath before you react. The moment you say, I need a second so I don't make this worse. The times you repair without being forced into it. And when you do that consistently, not perfectly, you start to become someone who's safe to be around again. Not because you never get angry, but because people can trust that when you do, you'll handle it differently this time. That's what rebuilds the bond, if you've been wondering. Not just love, not just rebuilding the bond of love, but also the bond of safety. And without safety, even the most heartfelt love starts to shrink. So if you want to repair a relationship you've hurt, don't just tell them who you want to be. Show them. After the apology comes the real work. And that work is rebuilding trust. Not just trust that you won't explode again, but trust that you're self-aware enough to notice when you're getting close. Trust that you won't shift blame. That you won't pretend it didn't happen. That you won't make it about how bad you feel for hurting someone else. Because here's the truth. Real safety doesn't come from words. It comes from patterns. From how you show up. How you stay present. how you take accountability without being asked. Safety gets rebuilt in the small things. The pause before you raise your voice. The breath before you react. The moment you say, I need a second so I don't make this worse. The times you repair without being forced into it. And when you do that consistently, not perfectly, you start to become someone who's safe to be around again. Not because you never get angry, but because people can trust that when you do, you'll handle it differently this time. That's what rebuilds the bond. Not just love, but safety. And without safety, even the most heartfelt love starts to shrink. So if you want to repair a relationship you've hurt, don't just tell them who you want to be. Show them. Repair is an action. It's not about the grand gestures. It's about the daily evidence that you're doing it differently and that you care to do it differently. So if you've hurt someone with your words, your anger, your reactivity, and you're ready to make it right, start here. Own it. Without conditions. That sounds like, I hurt you. And I take full responsibility. Not, I'm sorry you felt that way. Not, I wouldn't have said that if you hadn't pushed me. Don't rush the forgiveness. Give them space. Earning trust means not demanding comfort on your timeline. Regulate yourself first. Show that you know how to pause, breathe, cool off before re-engaging. Safety starts with you. Repair out loud. Here's what I'm doing to work on this. I'm learning how to notice when I'm dysregulated and how to take space before I react. Most importantly, be consistent when no one's clapping. Do the work even when it's not dramatic. Small changes, daily effort, that's where trust is rebuilt. Because in the end, anyone can say sorry, but only the ones doing the work will prove they mean it. So basically, what I'm getting at, it's one thing to mess up. It's another to keep messing up the repair. So if you're serious about rebuilding trust, Here's what not to do. Don't center your guilt. I feel so horrible. I hate myself. I'm the worst. That might be true, but saying it out loud makes the other person feel like they have to comfort you. That's not accountability. That's control in disguise. Don't pressure them to move on. I said I was sorry. What else do you want? Trust doesn't move on your timeline. If you rushed the harm, you don't get to rush the healing. Don't rewrite the narrative. Well, you yelled too. You made me feel like I had no choice. The moment you shift the focus, you break the safety again. Stay in your lane. Own your part. Don't fake calm to avoid conflict. Burying it, bottling it, saying it's fine when it isn't, none of that is regulation. It's avoidance, and it always explodes later. Don't weaponize the past. That might sound like, you should be grateful I'm trying. You know how bad I used to be. That's not progress. That's emotional manipulation, and people can feel it. The bottom line, if you want to heal the harm, don't make the repair about your ego. Make it about the relationship you're trying to protect. Now, if you're the one who's been hurt, the one who's carried the weight of someone else's rage, reactivity, or emotional damage, you deserve safety. You deserve peace. And you always have the right to walk away. But the truth is, not everyone leaves. Some people stay. They stay because they believe the person they love is capable of growth. Because they've seen the good. Because they want to give repair a chance. And that choice isn't weakness. It's just real life. So if you've chosen to stay and you're trying to heal together, here are some things to watch out for as you navigate that process. Not because it's your job to fix the other person, but because how you show up still matters. So don't shame them into change. That could sound like, you always do this. Or, you're just like your dad. Shame might get short-term compliance, but it doesn't build trust. It builds fear. Don't use forgiveness as leverage. If you really loved me, you'd fill in the blank. That's not forgiveness. That's control. Don't bottle it. Don't explode it. Silence isn't the same as healing, but neither is rage. You're allowed to be upset, but the goal is clarity, not punishment. Don't keep moving the goalpost. If they're doing the work, acknowledge it. Repair isn't instant, just like healing isn't linear. But people need to feel seen when they're trying. Don't take on the work for them. You can be supportive, you can be loving, but you cannot regulate for them or fix what they won't face. In healthy repair, both people have power. Power to name pain. Power to ask for better. And most importantly, power to choose what kind of relationship you're willing to stay in. For a lot of people, anger isn't just a bad habit. It's generational. It's what they grew up around. It's what was modeled for them. It's what was used to control them, shame them, or silence them. And even if you swore you'd never turn into your father, even if you promised yourself you wouldn't repeat what your mother did, sometimes the body remembers what the mind tried to forget. And that's when the cycle shows up. In your tone, your reactions, your parenting, your relationships. But here's the thing. You don't have to keep carrying it forward. Just because it was passed down to you doesn't mean you have to pass it on. You can learn to pause. You can learn to repair. You can learn to give your kids, your partner, or your inner self a version of safety you never had. And no, it won't always be easy, but it is possible. Breaking cycles isn't about being perfect. It's about being aware enough to say, it ends with me. And it's not just generational, it's cultural too, especially when it comes to gender. Some people, especially men or masculine, were taught that anger was the only emotion they were allowed to show, that sadness made them weak, that fear made them soft. So anger became the mask, the outlet, the only language they were taught for pain. And for others, especially women, anger was punished, shamed, dismissed as crazy, hormonal, or too emotional. So they learned to bury it or turn it inward. Either way, when we're not allowed to feel honestly, we lose the ability to heal fully. I can step away before I say something I regret, because this is overwhelm, not who I am. And I don't need to win. I need to stay grounded. Healing doesn't always look like a clean break or a perfect fix. Sometimes it looks like two people sitting across from each other, a partner, a parent, a grown child, both hurting, both trying. Sometimes it looks like one person saying, I don't want to lose this connection, but I can't keep living like this either. And the other one finally answering, I know. I want to do better. I'm learning how. That's repair, not the apology, not the promise, but the space in between, in the gray area where the work begins. If you've ever been the one who exploded or the one who absorbed it, or the one trying to figure out whether to stay or go or speak up or shut down, I just want to say this. You're not too far gone. You're not too late. And you're not the only one trying to figure it out. Repair is a choice. One you have to make on purpose. Not just once, but over and over again. And no, it's not easy. But neither is growing up under someone else's rage, or walking on eggshells in your own house, or carrying guilt for something you never learned how to do differently. So choose the hard that leads to healing. Choose the quiet work of consistency. Choose the kind of love for yourself and others that doesn't leave bruises when it speaks. It wasn't just about saying sorry. It was about becoming someone I didn't have to apologize for anymore to anyone I love. as I stated previously, I hear somebody tell me every day that they struggle with controlling their anger. So I wanted to end this episode with a few more techniques that you or somebody you love might be able to use to calm themselves down to a place where their anger is more manageable. First, orienting. Visual scanning for safety. So, why it works is it helps the nervous system realize you're not in immediate danger because it recognizes familiar things around you. The way you do it, you slowly turn your head and look around the room. Name 5 colors you see, find the corners, spot a light source. What this tells your brain, I'm not trapped. I'm safe. Nothing is attacking me. And this works on a subconscious level. Another one, heavy stomping or pushing through the feet. Why it works, it activates the legs and grounds the body. It can discharge stored adrenaline. You do this by pushing your heels into the ground like you're rooting into the floor. Like you're trying to drive your heels into the floor. If you're alone, actually stomp or press against a wall with your legs. This is telling your body, I have power. I'm not helpless. I'm here and I'm supported. These are somatic cues. These are techniques that can be used to almost trick your nervous system. A third one, wall press, isometric push. It works because it gives the fight response somewhere to go without causing harm. You do this by pressing both palms hard into a wall. Hold for about 10 seconds, release, and repeat. This is telling your system, we're doing something. We're not frozen. And we're not attacking anyone. Vocal vibration. Humming, buzzing, voo sound. Why it works. It stimulates the vagus nerve, which calms the parasympathetic system, the parasympathetic nervous system. You can do this by taking a breath, and as you exhale, make a deep, low sound or hum steadily. What it does, creates vibration in the throat and chest, which are 2 areas where people hold a lot of tension, such as rage, grief, and panic. Palm cooling or cold object hold, which I mentioned this earlier with the cold water on your hands, but I'll explain a little bit further why it works. It actually reduces your body temperature and physiological arousal. And this is actually similar to holding ice, which is a technique they use in DBT. You can do this by holding a cold pack, like an ice pack, a metal water bottle, or you can even run your wrist under cold water because you have a lot of nerve endings in that area that can reduce your body temperature. And this signals to the brain, crisis is passing. I'm regulating. We're chilling. It's okay. Another is intentional shaking / tension release. Why it works is it mimics how animals discharge trauma, like deer shaking after threat. The way you do this is shake your hands, feet, or whole body deliberately, like you're trying to let something go. Think dancing. And yes, it feels weird at first, maybe, but the purpose is to release stuck adrenaline that's trapped. It needs an outlet. And lastly, self-contact / weighted pressure. It works because it regulates the nervous system by a deep pressure like a weighted blanket. And you can do this by crossing your arms and squeezing your shoulders, pushing your hands into your thighs, and you can also try butterfly tapping, which is tapping alternately on your upper arms or shoulders to simulate co-regulation. Think giving yourself a hug. But again, we're trying to trick our nervous system to bring ourselves down to a level where we are calmer so that we can make good choices and we can finally pause. I'm here. I'm holding myself. I'm not alone. Thank you so much for listening. This was part 2 of the 2-part anger series. Thank you for being here. And most importantly, thank you so much for caring about mental health.
One.